What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involving the markets and Tesla, and why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely massive day as we have CPI and FOMC all coming out. So I'm going to break down how this could affect Tesla and the markets and what you should be watching for on the charts. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks, and the offer ends in just 1 week. Anyways, for Tesla, I was mentioning to everyone about how Tesla has this nice range right over here. We have this support around this 173 area and this resistance around 180. And this has been stuck in this range for quite some time. Tesla lost 173 as support today, which led to this sell-off all the way down to 168, the exact level that I called out. So I mentioned to everyone earlier, if we lost 173, we'll be watching for 168, and that's where Tesla went to. So the question is, what's going to happen from here? And this is going to be very dependent on CPI and FOMC, in my personal opinion. So what's happening tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have CPI and core CPI coming out. Then later on, we have FOMC and Jerome Powell's speech. So with CPI, month over month, we're expecting 0.1% for all items. And year over year, we're expecting 3.4% for all items as well. For core, month over month, we're expecting 0.3% and then 3.5 to 3.6% for year over year. So what do I think about CPI? How could this affect us? Just to be very blunt, when you look at historical data with CPI versus crude futures, there tends to be a high correlation between these different factors. So with this dip right over here, we actually saw CPI come all the way down towards these levels, and we actually saw basically crude is what led the way down. And then they came up together, they came down together, they came up and down. We saw crude go up a little bit before it started to dip all the way back down, starting towards the end of April. So just to be very, very clear, guys, crude was at 84 in April. It went down to about 78 in May. Then it went down to 75 in the month of June. This is crude futures. This suggests that for all items CPI, we're most likely going to get data that's aligned with expectations. The last time CPI came out, it was aligned with expectations too. So I believe that CPI month over month and year over year will be aligned with expectations around the 3.4% target area. However, there's a big however. For core CPI, looking at the ISM services new orders and prices and the manufacturing prices, manufacturing prices that went up, there is a risk of core being a little bit hot or very close to expectations. So I'm not as certain about core. I want to make that very, very clear. So CPI for all items should be fine, in my opinion, based off data. But based on what we saw historically with all the data from manufacturing numbers to services data from what I saw in the past, I am a little bit concerned about core. So we'll be watching this very, very carefully just to see how the numbers look. Now, just to be very clear, when all the data comes out, okay, when all the data comes out tomorrow, it's going to affect the FOMC meeting, the Fed rate hike decision, and also the economic projections. Now, the rate hike decision is not that important because we know right now that there's a 99.5% chance the Fed is going to keep rates the same for the month of June. We know they're going to most likely do that. That's like, it's going to cause a crazy CPI to change this. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Fed will most likely keep rates the same. That's the most likely possibility. However, what's going to affect us will be the economic projections report. That's going to be coming out as well, and that's going to be very important for how things end up moving. The reason why this is important is because the projections for our economy are going to give us more ideas about what the Fed is telling us about rate cuts. So will we get 3 cuts for the year? Will it just be 2? We'll find out more data about that. That's going to affect us more. And then at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. What Jerome Powell says is going to cause a very, very big move. So I'll be watching for that very, very carefully as well. So that's going to cause the most volatility, in my personal opinion. Moving forward, just to be very, very clear with everyone, we have these earnings coming up. We have Oracle after the market closes. We have a few more on Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll see what these cause, but it's all very, very minor. For Tesla, there's been some news that came out, which is not too good. The DMV's self-driving false advertising case now must go to trial because a California judge has once again ruled against Tesla's kind of like attempts to get through this. So that's important because now the DMV of California is going to start investigating Tesla for misleading FSD ads in 2021. And they claim that Tesla's saying different things to the public than what it was telling the DMV. They've sent an official inquiry to Tesla in 2022. And now this is going to be going to trial, which is not the best of news for Tesla. This is part of why Tesla ended up selling off. This is one of the factors as to why, not the only reason, but just one factor. And that's not the best of news, at least for Tesla. There's also some news about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is also withdrawn from the lawsuit against OpenAI and CEO Sam Altman. There could be many reasons why. We don't know the true reason according to what his attorneys have said. But what I do want to note is the fact that this is important because it's ending a months-long legal battle between him and OpenAI. So it's something worth noting. And we'll see how things go moving forward. On top of all of this, I wanted to call out that Elon Musk's potential $56 billion pay package rejection is going to have a big effect on Tesla stock. Some Bernstein analysts are saying that this will lead to at least a 5% sell-off if Musk were to not get the pay package. I personally don't think that's going to happen. I think that most investors will vote in favor of it. But just to be safe, we will wait and see what ends up happening with all this data. Now, for more factors, I just want to call out that the volume is currently at about 65 million. This is actually a little bit below average. So Tesla is dropping on lower volume, and the short volume is still going up despite that. On top of this, Bernstein has reiterated that Tesla will most likely underperform compared to the markets. We also started to see the price-price ratio dipping a little bit lower. This is also once again dipping towards the lower targets right over here. So that's because Tesla is showing some weakness relative to the markets. We have a tendency of being green only about 48% of the time on Wednesday, so historically not the best of day for Tesla. And then we also have more volatility, more green at 10 a.m., around noon, and then 3 o'clock p.m. All right, so that's it for all the data I typically go about in headlines. Now let's just focus on the charts. What do I think is going to happen to Tesla and the stocks moving forward? So, in my personal opinion, because Tesla lost its critical support, there's a sign of weakness on Tesla, but we went down to our next level at 168. The last time Tesla hit this, we got a very, very nice bounce. So please keep that in mind. Tesla did bounce very nicely the last time we hit 168, and there is potential for this to try to rebound. Whether this rebound happens depends on CPI. If CPI is hot tomorrow, Tesla could reject and come back down to 168. If we lose this, I'll be watching 165 then 162.5 as two supports. If we're bullish, you want to see it break past this resistance and make its way up to 173 then 176. If those break, Tesla will be pushing back up towards the high levels. As of right now, it looks like Tesla's trying to bounce, so I do favor trying to rebound a bit and make its way up to 173. But just to be safe, we will wait and see. So it all depends on CPI. I am optimistic Tesla might try to rebound to at least 173, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see what the news says and what the data looks like. Now, despite how Tesla's looking, let me make it very clear that right now, SPY is at all-time highs. In the after hours, we're breaking the all-time high. SPY is pumping very, very hard, and we're holding up very, very well. Technicals suggest if we keep this up very easily going up to the 540s, if we get a big rejection, we'll be dipping back down to 533. And we have to lose 531 to turn bearish and lose this trend. If we lose 531, we'll be dipping all the way down to the 520s. Okay, so lose 531, we're bearish. If CPI is hot, there's a risk of that happening. If we're bullish, we're going to be breaking out towards 538 and eventually 540. The chart looks very bullish on SPY. It suggests that SPY wants to go up to the 540s. So that looks more probable. But please note that technical analysis is not sufficient. It's not going to give us all the answers. It does look more probable that SPY wants to pump, but it's going to depend on CPI and what we get from core and such. So I think CPI will be decent, but I'm not too sure about core CPI. So we'll have to wait and see. That's going to be very, very important. So for now, even though the chart suggests upside is more probable, we'll have to wait and see. But upside does look more probable looking at the chart. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin has a nice double top like structure. It's actually starting to slow down right here. We have this resistance around our 200 EMA. And if we're going to form a symmetrical structure, it may reject there if we end up continuing to fall. So we do look more bearish on Bitcoin. Watch resistance around 67,789 at the 200 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. If Bitcoin rejects here, we're going to be dipping back down. If we break through this, we'll be pushing higher. There is a risk of this actually breaking down, my personal opinion, so I'll be watching this carefully. But just to be safe, it depends on the data and what reaction we get. It does look like Bitcoin might reject, though, as a stronger possibility. For Nvda, we are shuffling between 119 as support and our resistance happens to be up around 123. We're kind of stuck within this range, so we will see which way we end up going. There is a chance that Nvidia is going to try to break out towards 124, so we will wait and see how things end up looking. But overall, Nvidia is holding up quite decently. There is a chance it might try to rebound a little bit higher, but like I said before, it depends on the data, it depends on CPI. It does look like it wants to rebound a bit, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see. The QQQ looks very bullish thanks to Aapl breaking out. If we continue to push thanks to CPI, if CPI is decent, I'll be looking for the 470 plus area, then eventually 472. If we're bearish, we'll be looking for a rejection or retest of 465 and 462. Overall, we look more bullish from a technical standpoint, so upside does look more probable as the bulls look very strong. But just to be safe, we will wait and see if we lose key support, especially at 462. QQQ looks bullish though. We'll wait and see what happens with CPI. So be patient, guys, and we'll give it some time. Aapl absolutely exploded, breaking past 204. We have resistance around 208 and then 210 and 215. We have support at 204, 202, then 200. Overall, Aapl is looking more bullish from a technical standpoint. Now, if we get a hot CPI, we could easily start falling all the way down towards 202 and 200. If we're bearish, if we're bearish, we're going to be making that move. If we're bullish, we'll be pushing all the way up to about 210 plus. We're kind of in the middle, but the technicals do look a bit more bullish, so we'll just have to wait and see. All right, guys, so that is it for the main five I typically talk about. Now let's just focus on the other tickers like NEO and the others. I'll be very, very brief with these. So NEO looks more bearish with this inverse cup and handle. We lost structure right here. I expect this gap fill around 4.16. Depending on CPI, there could be a rebound first about 4.7 before we come back down, or we could just drop from here. So it's best to just wait and see and give it the time it needs before we get a much bigger move. For Palantir is looking more bullish, forming a nice cup and handle like structure. This suggests to me we might be looking for 24.5 plus. So we'll have to give this some time just to see how things end up moving. But overall, we're still holding up very, very well. And we'll have to see how things end up progressing from here. So if we get a hot CPI, I'll be looking for 22 flat. If we get a decent CPI, in my personal opinion, we could easily see this thing actually push for 25. So we will give this some time just to see how things end up moving. The chart does favor upside, so we'll see what CPI gives us, but just know that as far as super micro goes, there is a risk of super micro dipping in my personal opinion as well. If we do dip lower, I'll be looking for a 754. If we push higher, we'll be looking for basically 800 plus. If we break 802, we're bullish. The chart looks more bearish as we have a head and shoulders, so that's what technicals suggest. So it does favor like a pop and drop, but it also depends on CPI. For a few more, we also have other tickers such as Rivian on a very, very nice break. Right now, we're actually on a very, very nice uptrend. If we continue to push, I'll be looking for essentially this resistance that's actually very close to this level right here at 12. If we get a rejection, we'll be dipping back down towards our 11.57 area, the 20 EMA. But overall, we're still looking more bullish. To me, technical suggests a little drop in a bounce, but it also depends on the data. So we'll just wait and see what we get from that. For SoFi, we're at 7 right now. If we're bullish, look for 7.2. If we're bearish, we'll be dipping back down to 6.8. We're in the middle, dead center, so give it some time. Technicals look more bullish since we have a double bottom and we're trying to push up higher. So it does suggest upside is more probable, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see. For the IWM, we have a gap to fill above, so the upside looks a bit more probable. So I think that 202 being touched is more probable. If we reject, we'll be looking at 198 to be dipping. So we do look more bullish on the IWM, so we'll see how things go. For AMD has a head and shoulders like structure. If we fail to break above 158 or hold above it, we're going to be dipping down to 155 easily. It looks more bearish overall. But to be bullish, you want to see it try to break past 160 and hold it. If we hold it, I'll be looking for 164 again. It depends on CPI, of course, but I just want to say that as of right now, at the time I'm recording this, technicals do look weaker on AMD, and they do suggest a downside around 155 is coming as a more probable standpoint. So watch for that very carefully, guys. We'll see how things go. Moving forward for other tickers such as we're looking at ARM. If ARM pushes higher, we'll be looking for 148 as resistance. If we dip lower, we'll be coming back down towards 136 or lower. To me, the chart looks bullish. It is trying to uptrend, but we're at some tough resistance. So it looks like it might dip and then bounce. But this also depends on CPI, so we'll see what that brings us. For Coinbase has this gap to fill above, so it might try to push up for 250. If it pushes up and rejects, it'll be coming back down. If it ends up losing support at 230, it'll be dipping all the way down towards 230. It depends on CPI. It does look like it wants to fill the gap, so I favor maybe it trying to do so, but just to be safe, we'll wait for confirmation. For Amazon's actually on a very, very tough rip right now. It's actually looking very bullish. So there's a very, very good chance Amazon's going to continue to push, make its way up towards the 190 area. So it looks more bullish to me. If we reject very close to where we are and we end up losing 184, we turn bearish, and I could see this thing dipping down to 181. But technicals do look more bullish for Amazon for a move up to 190. As of right now, it favors that, but we'll see if CPI confirms that move or not. For Meta, we're looking more bullish. If we keep pushing, I'll be looking for 510. If that breaks, 515 is coming. If we're bearish, we'll be dipping all the way down towards the 20 EMA to at least 495. As of right now, technicals look more bullish, so we'll see if that ends up being the case with all the data coming out. Microsoft is looking more bullish as well. Going to be looking for a test of about 434. If we reject here, we'll be dipping all the way back down to 425. If we keep pushing, I think we continue to go to 435. So we will see. It looks like it wants to go up to 435 from a technical standpoint. So we'll see if CPI helps us or not. But technicals look bullish. Google looks like it wants to get all the way up to about 180, at least 178 and 180. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders. 180 is our potential targets. If we're bullish, look for 180. If we fail, we're going to look for rejection. But technicals look more bullish on Google. For GameStop is turning on the 4-hour time frame. It's favoring a big push all the way up to this imbalance. 38 looks a lot more probable, so I do favor upside as a stronger possibility. So we'll be watching just to see how things end up developing, but this is looking pretty good in my opinion. For AMC, we're looking more bullish as well. The 4 hours showing strength. 5.5 looks like a potential target, but it also depends on what we get from the data. But so far, so good. DJT, this is looking kind of weaker to me. We just lost our 200 EMA. There is a risk of this dipping all the way down towards the previous resistance around 37.5. So I favor downside a bit more, but it also depends on CPI. So we'll see. 3 more. The VIX is in the middle. We have a gap to fill down here. So there's a risk of it actually coming down. I think it looks a little more bearish, at least technically speaking. There's a little rejection that's forming right here, and we have these gaps to fill. So it looks more bearish, technically speaking, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. For the 10-year treasury yield, it depends on what Jerome Powell says. He's either going to pump this or cause this to dump. It looks like it wants to continue to downtrend, but we'll see what Jerome Powell causes. The dollar has a nice pump, but it's starting to turn on the 4-hour. There's a risk of it dipping down to 105, so we'll see if that loses support or not. So I'll be very, very patient with this, and we'll see what ends up happening with this move. But that's going to be key for how things end up developing, so I'll be watching this very carefully. With that being said, guys, as far as Tesla goes, okay, Tesla is bound within this range. Okay. One could argue that Tesla still has hope thanks to the inverse head and shoulders like structure that's developing, but the chart is showing weakness. So we need to get a bounce. It has to bounce very soon for this to play out. And maybe the shareholder meeting could help it. So we will wait and see. But in my personal opinion, like I said before, I'm going to give this some time. Let's see what the big reaction is to CPI. We'll see if we get a temporary bounce or not. Know that the inverse head and shoulders is still intact, but for now, we're not going to focus on that. We're just going to focus on this one day at a time, and the next catalyst will be CPI, so we'll just focus on that for now. We'll see if Tesla gets a rebound towards 173 plus and 176. There is potential for this, at least from technicals, but just to be safe, we will wait and see and be very, very unbiased when it comes to the way we look at the markets. All right, so I thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Have a very, very good night, guys, and I will see you guys very soon tomorrow before the market ends up opening. All right, so before market open, before we get all the data, I'll give you guys reports. And then until then, take care and enjoy the rest of the evening. The market's been very crazy recently, but once again, discipline is key in a market like this and risk management. I cannot stress that enough. Not financial advice, by the way. And I'll see you guys tomorrow then. So thank you for listening. Have a good night and peace out.